Got it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Higher Vibes Up on Wednesday, 3rd of May, 2023. We are here with Diane and our wonderful special guest, Catherine Edwards. As you know, we're co-hosting for Kid and Candy on this show. We're delighted to have Catherine Edwards join us today. Thank you, Catherine. Welcome. It's such an honor to have you.
Oh, it's so lovely to be here, and lots of love, obviously, to Kid and Candy as well. So, yeah.
We'll pass that on for sure. I'm sure they'll watch this later and get your love as well. So thank you for that.
I have to say, Catherine, you are looking stunning. You are just
so kind.
You're just glowing.
Oh, that's very kind. Well, it's sunny here in the UK, so when we have the sun out, we let it in. We don't block it out because we need it.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. It's probably tea time for you, right? Get the cuppa on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I've got doggies waiting outside for their walk, but I've got rabbits outside, guinea pigs outside, the ponies, the cat. So it's heaven for me. Surrounded by animals is where I want to be at all times.
I love that. And I know, sorry, today I just want to talk about the power of love and the power of connection that we have, not just to each other, because that's what connects us all, but how the animals are connected to us through the power of love and emotion too. How can we speak about that? How can we share so much? You have so much in-depth knowledge and experience with animals and their well-being. So we want to tap into as to what you can share with our listeners. What wisdom can you part with that can help people to have that ultimate care for their pets as well as themselves too? What kind of nutrition do you integrate into their daily lives? So I would love to hear your secrets, please.
Oh, I can talk all day about animals. I mean, I love where you're going with that, because for me, what I've realized, it's funny, isn't it? Because every single human and every single animal on this planet, I mean, plants we can get into another day because they're equally as amazing, as you can see around me. But every single animal or human, we've all got our gifts. We've all got things that come naturally to us. And sometimes something that seems so obvious to us as individuals isn't obvious to other people. And I think when people are looking at where is their passion, what is their purpose, that's the biggest clue. What naturally makes sense to you that some other people find confusing? And for me, it's always been animals and the relationships. And it's only as I've got older that I've realized that actually some of the things that are so obvious to me, of course, I'm learning every day, and oh my goodness, I certainly don't know it all. But I'm so lucky to be surrounded by animals, both my own and the ones that I work with, that teach us so much. And in this sort of great awakening that we're going through, I think anyone that's watching High Vibes Up is so on board with energy, that we are all energy, and that as a planet and as every being on the planet, we are all going through an energy transformation at some stage, and it's bumpy. But what the animals teach us is they don't crowd what is and the being with labeled emotions, with the human language. They feel the real energy behind everything else. And so many times we talk about what's best for humanity and living on planet Earth. And I think therein lies a contradiction. An animal doesn't ever see it as separate from everything else in its environment. And we have separated ourselves, most of us, obviously talking in generalizations here. There's some people that haven't, but a lot of humans, because of the way we've lived for the last few centuries, we've separated ourselves, and most people are looking to get that connection back. And our animals can really fast track us to that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Seriously, what you just said is so brilliant, because it is so true.
Oh, bless. And I think, the beauty, I think, of what's happened. I mean, I'm on a YouTube ban at the moment, so don't worry, ladies. I will be very careful what I say here. I think it's really, really sad that this level of censorship, and again, it just shows how completely messed up, I nearly said a rude word then, human civilization has got, you know, Caesar Lamb, very controversial figure, but in my opinion, got one of the best spiritual connections with animals. As he quite rightly says, humans are the only species on the planet that follow unstable leaders. And therein lies the issue. Now, when we look at native tribes, when we look at ancient civilizations, it's not all perfect. We can tend to, as humans, sort of romanticize the good bits and forget about the bad. And of course, mixed in with that, none of us really know what our real history is anyway, because the only thing we do know is what we have actually been told won't be true. But when you look at how animals conduct and arrange themselves, they have a natural ability to bring about balance. They know that their survival depends on being in balance with their group, with their community, with their other species, with their food sources. So animals in nature, I'll talk about in a minute about how we mess this up as human beings when we take them out of their natural environments. But animals in their natural environments will only take what they need. They have to live in cooperation because their survival is dependent on it. And yes, of course, you do have some animals eating other animals and things like that. That's another discussion. But a fox out in the wild would never go and kill a whole range of prey animals. It will just be lucky enough to catch what it needs for that day. The only reason it gets into your chicken coop and kills all the chickens is because humans have stupidly trapped a whole load of prey animals in an area where they can't escape from predators and not protected them. So when we look at the problems and the imbalances, unfortunately, the reality is it's always human made. You never see another species in nature cause that imbalance where there hasn't been human interference. Now, what can we do about it? Everyone watching this is very much on a journey in terms of, look, we want the world to be a better place. We understand that we have to take personal responsibility for that, and we can't wait for someone else to do all these things for us. So let's just really take the complication out of it, I think, and say, where can we learn from others around us that are doing it better than we can? Most people, when they're learning a business or a new skills, what do we get told? And I think quite rightly so. Find someone who's expert in that and copy them or mirror them or learn from them, whatever you want to do. That's what nature does all the time. And so if we get out of our heads more and get back to some common sense principles, we don't need to make all of this so complicated. We don't need laws and legislations to tell us what it means to be a good person. We don't need to label anything, whether it's color, sex, religion, or anything. If you just be a nice, compassionate person and live within the rules of the nature, that's it. We don't need anything else. And so we complicate things, often to explain the cock-ups that we've made. So you mentioned, Satnam, about nutrition. And now tell me when I'm talking too much, just interrupt me. But with nutrition,
God, I'm loving this.
I'm listening. So keep going. It's beautiful.
There's no animal in the wild that doesn't know how to feed themselves if humans don't interfere. So an animal in the wild will virtually never poison themselves. I'm a practitioner of something called zoopharmacognosy, which is animals self-medicating, using natural herbs, clays, plants, substances in the wild to bring their mind and body back into balance. And that's how a lot of our pharmaceutical products are, and natural remedies. I'm looking at what animals select for certain conditions. So we've all heard the saying that one man's medicine is another man's poison. And this is how nature works. So, for example, if I've got a parasite infection and I'm a wild animal, I innately know, and that will also be helped by other herd members or pack members, which will teach their young as well. But fundamentally, it's an innate response using my senses to go and seek out certain medicinal plants that will cleanse myself of the parasites. But I also know as that animal that if I ate those same plants, for example, the antiparasitic ones when I was healthy, they could damage me. So I just wouldn't do it. But if us humans take, say, a herd of cattle or a herd of horses and lock them in a square field where they've got no choice and all the stuff they need is just outside the boundary, they can't maintain that balance, and that's where things go wrong. and look at what humans have done. A lot of us have locked ourselves or been locked, whichever way you want to take responsibility for it, in concrete jungles. And we wonder why we're out of balance physically, emotionally. We wonder why we can't connect into our intuition. It really, we've only got to look at our environment and sort of say, wow, how difficult is it if you're living in the middle of a city? Of course it's difficult to connect in with your intuition. You've removed yourself from everything that's giving you the messages that you need to innately know what's a good decision for your thriving.
That's very powerful. That's a powerful message for everybody, because
Oh my God.
we need to get back into nature. We need to open ourselves up more and not live in fear. We've contracted. We've got to expand more. We've got to get out. We've got to follow this in here. What is it asking for? This is your well-being in here guiding you. This is what you need. And just as you've spoken about the well-being of animals and their intuition that they follow, their intellect kicks in on every level. And this is how, the dogs and cats, have the highest frequencies in their bodies, because they're so connected to their source energy that lives within their bodies. So I think it's amazing what you're sharing and what you practice each and every day. I watch your videos and how you interact and communicate with your babies. It's just phenomenal. And I learned so much from that. And I thank you for the value that you bring to each and every one of us, and not just to improve ourselves, how we connect and love our beings that are in our lives, as our kids and our families, but also how they can thrive as well. It's a two-way system. And in that two-way system, there's a lot of love and power, a lot of connection. And this is that attachment that happens with our babies, that they follow you everywhere. They need you for the love that we bring forward, right? So that connection is so strong. And so I wanted to speak just a little bit about, when we go away, some pets have separation anxiety. What can we do for things like that?
Well, the first question is to say, I would question why we're saying our pets have separation anxiety. So there's very few species of animals that are designed to live solitary. So let's take a dog, because most people will resonate with, if we're talking about dogs. Cats always need a whole show to themselves.
For sure. Yes.
But let's talk about a dog, because most people, even if they haven't got lucky enough to have a dog in their own family, they know someone that has. A dog is a pack animal. And when we take them into a human environment, we take them away from the pack. Now, please, everyone watching, don't think that I'm meaning all this stuff as a bad thing. Lots of dogs love being domesticated and sharing their life with us. But there are a lot of buts. So people, I think, when they interact with their animals, unfortunately, it's part of human nature where we expect our animals to fit into our lifestyles. We don't make enough effort to fit in and understand their needs. So let's take a dog. It's a pack animal and it's a denning animal. So those two things are fundamental parts of their instincts. So a pack animal is designed to function best when it's surrounded by lots of other dogs of the same species. And by dogs, I'm talking about real dogs that are intact with their instincts and can actually act like real dogs. Unfortunately, it makes me laugh. All this fuss we've got in the woke community, and I don't mean woke in terms of that way, I mean in the awakening community, about transhumanism, about AI, about genetic engineering, about these awful things that are going on. And then look what we've done to our pets. I mean, look at most breeds of dogs now. I've got two of the most amazing mongrels you've ever met in your life. They're street dogs from Romania. They're amazing because if they can choose to be with me, but if something happened to me, they could survive on their own. They might get hit by a car or something, but they could feed themselves. They've still got their instincts. Most dogs, us humans, have completely bred out their ability to breathe properly, their ability to give birth properly, their ability to walk properly. We've even bred them with coats that need to go to groomers all the time. I mean, it's just ridiculous, really, but it is what it is, and they forgive us for it. But if you've got one dog in your house and you're spending most of your time with it, and then you decide you want to go on holiday or out shopping, And then the human labels it separation anxiety. It's like, not separation anxiety. You've trained that dog to want to spend all its time on you. You've got an emotional connection with it where you're quite codependent on it. But suddenly, because the human's got something else on the agenda, the dog's meant to cope with it all right. So how do you build that? Well, you build self-confidence and you allow the dog to feel secure in its environment, because no dog will have separation anxiety if they feel secure in themselves and secure in their environment. So that needs to be looking at, you know, what sort of exercise are you giving it? What sort of nutrition are you giving it? Are you training it gradually to have periods of time on its own? You know, if you've got the type of person, and we see this a lot, I don't know what it's like where you are, ladies, in the USA, but in the UK, we have a lot of people that have what we call handbag dogs. So people who live in cities have beautiful little dogs, I mean, amazing, that they take everywhere with them, which is lovely. But of course, that dog then is going to be in trauma if you then decide to leave it with someone else, because you've created a time where it's used to going everywhere. It has no other dogs, you know, a play date in a pack, in a crowded park. There's no relationship there. That's not what it is to live in a pack. So you have become the only other member of the pack, or that family has. So that's like abandoning it completely when you go. So what I would say is you've got to look at the nutrition, you've got to look at the exercise, you've got to look at how secure is the environment, you've got to look at, are you gradually building up that dog to feel comfortable to be left on its own, well before you get to the stage where the separation anxiety. If you've already got to that stage where they have got separation anxiety, you've got to look right back. So why I bring in nutrition to it, no animal in nature can feel safe if their body, if their physical body is really out of balance.
Yeah.
And what do most people feed their dogs? Something out of a bag or a tin. Seriously, I refuse to accept. I'm not one of these people that suffers full gladly. I don't believe there's a single person watching this today that if push comes to the shove, they really believe that a hard brown ball to give to their cats or dogs is nutrition. If you wouldn't do it yourself, don't give it to animals. So you look at what is a species appropriate diet and you educate yourself. And there's loads of people out there that can do it for you. Now, our animals are really forgiving. So if you've already got separation anxiety, we can't know everything. Look at what we're all learning every day. I mean, honestly, when I look back at how much I've learned over the last 3 years, I look back at the old me 10 years ago and I don't recognize me. So this isn't a judgment. The other thing that animals do is they never judge us. It never comes from an ego. When that light bulb goes on your head and like, oh my goodness, what am I feeding and when am I feeding? Because leaving food down for dogs is so dangerous. Their digestive system can't cope with it. I won't go into too much detail because it might bore people, but, you know, educating, what does that animal need? You know, what would that animal eat in the wild? Okay, they're not wild dogs anymore, but their systems are still designed for that. So no human can thrive off processed food. No animal can thrive off processed food. And dogs. So we have to really take our responsibility as pet parents seriously and say, how can we expect them to be stress-free, to fit into our environments if we as their caregivers, because they can't go to the shop and buy the food. They can't decide what medicines you're going to put in them and on them. They can't decide what exercise they're going to get. So separation anxiety, Satnam, exercise is a big deal. Dogs need proper exercise. As my friend, holistic vet, Dr. Peter Tobias says, 45 minutes for a dog is a toilet break. Anything less than 40, is not exercise. Dog needs to be out in nature, sniffing, interacting with nature, pawing the ground, doing this. A play in a doggy play park with an owner chucking a ball of full time is not it. That's for the human, not for the dog. Doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but even if you can only get your dog out into nature once a week, I promise you it will make a difference. So it's looking at all those little things. What can we do with the situation we've got? And then sort of gradually putting those little improvements in place.
Yeah. I think the daily walks is not only good for the animal, but also good for you and your soul, because you're out there, you get to see so much more and connect to so much more as we, spend time. It doesn't have to be, yes, we're surrounded by a lot of concrete. Yes, you can find a small park, you can find a small street, a patch of grass somewhere that allows you just to have that connection, because that's what they crave and that's what they want. And every element that you've just mentioned has so much value, so much power in this whole field of learning, that we really need to re-look at things in a new way with fresh eyes as to how we've been taught, conditioned, to how over the last few years has taught us to be so powerful and independent and take control of our lives and not be washed with information that's out there. Do our due diligence and do your research, look into things properly, question it, and then make your wise decisions. The choices are there. And it's living by choice that gives you the quality of life.
I love that. Choice is such an important point for our animals. And as I said, we are so lucky, anyone who's got an animal, because there's not an animal in the world when we communicate them that says, I wish my mum had done this 10 years ago. They don't. They just say thank you for now. So they are the ultimate teachers for being in the present moment, for forgiveness, for gratitude. So any one of us is lucky enough to have a dog to walk. How joyful is that experience? Because every walk they act like it, and they will take every little bit. As you say, even if they only get to one tree on their walk, they're grateful for it. And then perhaps you can have fun planning a different route, so explore, because they make us, they push our boundaries, just as you were saying. They're so good for us, because how many people will make time for their dogs or cats or something, but they won't make time for themselves? So they are such a gift to us, because everything that you're doing that's improving the quality of your animal's life, of whatever species it is, I guarantee it will be improving the quality of your life. And they pick up on that vibration so much. And the other thing is they want us, so many, I find it overwhelming. I don't know about you ladies, but there's a lot about, we want to focus on love and creating what we do want, but equally we do need to know what the challenges being thrown at us are, so we can make the best decisions for ourselves and our loved ones. So it's a balance, but I think it's how you look at those challenges that are being thrown at you. So if you're in a situation now, and we've all been there, doesn't matter, we're talking about animals today, but it could be about your own health, it could be about a child's health, it could be about parents' health, it could be about best friend, doesn't matter what the situation is. All of us will have that awakening moment where we think, oh my goodness. And with humans, we have a capacity as humans to wait till something goes disastrously wrong to do something about it. But that's okay. If that's your journey, it's like when you then say, oh, thank you, now I've got the message, then suddenly everything moves forward. And that's what our animals are doing all the time. They're not sitting there saying, I wish you hadn't done that. They're just saying, thank you, let's just concentrate on moving forward from here. And every little step improvement they take with open arms and they're grateful for. Wouldn't we have friends like that?
It's so true. And when you were talking a few minutes ago, my brain was just like going crazy. I used to live in a very, very rural area in the White Mountains of Arizona. So I mean, there's elk bugling, there were packs of wild horses. I saw wolves go down my street. I literally was the only one that lived on the street during winter,
Wow.
so that the guy would forget to plow my street, and it's like, you forgot me, I'm stuck. My dog was Catahoula. She was half Catahoula and half black-mouthed cur. And it was so interesting when I would drive. I had a day spa in Hermosa Beach in California, so I would drive once a month and I would bring her. And she was so always excited to go back home.
Yeah.
And her sisters, there was like 12 of them, lived at a ranch not far, but she knew when they were there every time, because she'd jump the fence and she'd be gone. But then she'd come back knowing that she was in trouble, but it was like just too much for her to resist. But the smile on her face, I'm telling you, this dog smiled. You could just
Yes.
see it just like glowing out of her. And it was like, oh my God, that's so good. I can't even yell at her for jumping the fence, right? And I was worried for 3 hours.
Oh my God, it's the worst feeling, isn't it?
Oh
But
God, yes.
oh wow, that's just amazing. And that's just such a great lesson. You know, I think all of us are talking about, look, we want to live this life. We want to live this life, and therefore our animals want to live this life. Now, it's really funny. I am very overprotective as a mother, and I recognize that. So I have to work on that all the time. So we live in the middle of the countryside. It's beautiful here. And I've got 5 cats at the moment, and they go off wherever they want, when they want. And a couple of them, they can be gone for days off hunting. And I'm like, where's my baby? Just come back and show me you're okay. And my husband's like, they're fine. They're having fun. And, you know, there's a balance there, because sometimes they have been trapped in somewhere or stuck up a tree. But, you know, I over worry. He's very laid back. If we can meet someone in the middle, we'd probably be all right. But the thing is, we want to let our animals live, and they can show us how to really enjoy life. And, you know, there's a limit. Yes, we do have to keep them away from busy roads. We have to keep them away from alligators and crocodiles, you know, because if we're taking them out of their natural environment and they haven't got such strong instincts left anymore, then we have a responsibility to do some sort of protection. But we also need to let them move like dogs. We need to let them eat like dogs. We need to let them interact, socialize, sniff, use all their senses. You know, a dog's dominant sense, it's smell, and then eyes, and then ears, the complete opposite to us. So therefore, we've got to look at that with their interaction. And if we're constantly rover, we're just ruining it all. So it's always about balance, and they give us such good feedback, so we can see when we're getting it right and when we are getting it wrong. Just like with our own health or physical health and mental health, decisions, way of communicating people, whatever, they're not going to come back and just keep bringing it up. You know, how many humans do we know? Well, they'll still be bringing up stuff that you did 10 years ago. An animal will never do that, but they're very happy for you to sort of say, oh, I shouldn't perhaps do that. Classic example is over the last 3 years, I'll be obviously very careful how I say that, but a lot of humans have realized that they don't want other humans that they don't trust making decisions for them about their health choices.
Agreed.
Everyone knows what we mean by that. There's no judgment there, whatever choice you made. But the point is, if you're allowed to make the choice, most people feel a lot happier about it than when someone else has made that choice for you. But look at what most people do with their animals. They take them along for routine spot-on treatments, routine other interventions. They shove chemical wormers down their throat or on the things. And if anyone was to actually read the ingredients list on those, they'd realize they're neurotoxins, they're poisons, they're this. But people are now questioning where they didn't before. And people are like, hang on a minute, I've seen what it's like to have someone I don't trust making a decision. Therefore, oh my gosh, what have I been doing to my animals? And I used to do it in the old days when I was much younger, because I thought it was the right thing to do. When you know better, you do better. And that's all they're asking for us, to keep that curiosity, to inquire, to say, does that make sense? You know, ask any of our grandmothers, they'd have poo-pooed. They knew how to prepare a healthy meal.
So talking about, for me personally, for the past few years, you know, I've kept them naturally and haven't taken them to, you know, to have anything else put into their bodies. So if there's anything, I use the ASEA on them. And that seems to work pretty well to kind of balance their systems out, which really, really is something I think everybody needs on hand, something natural that helps. But if they need something, they go out in nature and get it, whether it's a plant that they want to eat to clear their stomachs. The other element I want to just talk about is, I know you touched upon it briefly without using the words, is, you know, there's that cross-contamination that's been happening to our beloved pets from the impact of the past few years in our homes, in our environments. And I think we've all kind of, to some degree, experienced that. And it's seeing the symptoms of that cross-contamination in our pets, and how do we detoxify their systems?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing I would say is you've got to start with nutrition. If our bodies do not have the right building blocks. Now, unfortunately, it is a reality that in the USA, the quality of your meat, the quality of your food in a lot of places is even more compromised than it is in Europe. So getting the best quality food, because all of our bodies need the correct building blocks to build on. So educating yourself on how to keep your animal in balance, because it's not as simple as just shoving a load of meat down. That's not going to be in balance, because they would eat different parts of the animal that would get different nutrition and different words, like the liver's got completely different nutrition in to the flesh meat. But if the liver also removes toxins from the body, so if you're feeding a conventionally farmed animal's liver, it's going to be full of toxins. So look, how would you decontaminate? There was 3 things I would do. Let's talk about the general things first and then the specific. So really educate the diet. I've got a course on how to home prepare your own dog's food, how to home prepare your own cat's food. Dr. Peter DeBias, who's an amazing Canadian vet, he does his website is brilliant, Dr. Peter DeBias. He's in Canada and he has got an amazing website with a lot of dog nutrition stuff, not cats. And also you've got to get them out in nature, because none of our microbiomes can thrive in a non-natural environment. So dogs need to be in proper dirt. They need the beach or the trees. That's where you're going to build your microbiome. And then you're looking at what substances do you use to remove the man-made stuff that's been put in. But you can't use the substances without the other building blocks. You just can't. We all know if our body doesn't move properly, you can't flush out toxins anyway, however good the substance is.
Right.
Same with our animals. So you can't, it's like the ASEA. We all absolutely love the ASEA. I mean, seriously, it's just transformed everything about every person I interact with it. But you can't use these products, these brilliant products, and still live an unhealthy life emotionally or physically. You've got to do them hand in hand. Yeah. So what I would then do with our pets is I would absolutely be using the ASEA. We can't add it to their food. So I've got little videos on my YouTube about how to train them to drink it themselves, or you can syringe it in. You can also apply the gel topically, because what the ASEA is going to do is it's going to, obviously, as we all know, it's going to gently detox the cells, and it's going to refill with what's healthy that should be inside the cells. So it's a double whammy. And just like the analogy I like to use, ladies, is if you've got 2 buckets and one bucket's full of really dirty water and the other bucket's full of beautiful, clean, structured water. Get 2 sponges, squeeze them and put them into the water and let them out so they become saturated. If you take the dirty sponge out and it's saturated with dirty water and put it in the clean water, it can't absorb the clean water because it's already full. So what we've got to do is, when we've got, and all of us have, these man-made toxins that are in our bodies, we've got to give our bodies that extra bit of helping hand of getting the nasties out and then refilling with the nice clean stuff. And that's exactly what the ASEA does. There are other things you can use as well, but you've got to be, you really need to know what you're doing with animals, because not all human supplements are safe for using with animals. Right. That's why I love the ASEA, because it 100% is safe to use. But with the ASEA, I am talking about the blue and the white. You wouldn't use some of the other supplements like the VIA range necessarily with animals, and you shouldn't need to. So diet, get out in nature, let them move their bodies, because they have to have movement to get rid of that stagnation and the toxins. We've all seen our dogs and cats, they're brilliant at stretching out. That's why it's called the downward dog. That's why it's called the cat pose. They're really good at shaking off when they need to shift energy. And then let's give them a helping hand with nutrition and ASEA, so that then we can give them the extra coping mechanisms that all of us need when we're living in a human environment.
That's amazing. Great advice. And, every little reminder really, really helps us to try to live in balance. And moving on from, we've talked about nature, we've talked about nutrition, and we've talked about the diet of the animals as well. Let's move on to how they connect spiritually. Cats like to meditate. I think my dogs also meditate too, and how that raises their frequency, how they balance out their frequencies in their bodies. Any insight on that you'd like to shed some light on?
Yeah, absolutely. Letting them, I think you touched on it earlier, about letting them have the ability to make choices. So most of us, anyone who's a mum of 2 human babies, we know that when you've got a baby or anything, it's basically exercise, food, sleep. Exercise, food, sleep. Don't do it the other way around. And so many people make mistakes about exercising dogs, for example, after they've eaten and things like that. And that can be really, really dangerous for dogs, really dangerous. So what I would say is, when we step back, the beauty about this is we don't need to know, we need to let them make the choice. And then we need to follow what they're doing. So dogs and cats innately know when they need to fast, if they're not well. They innately know when they need to rest. They know they need to, every animal needs to have a safe space where it can take itself away from whoever else is in the house and the environment if it needs to, and really relax and connect in. They need to have connection with nature. So if, for example, you've got an indoor cat, or you live in a complex where it's pretty concrete, you need to bring nature to the animal. So bring in, investigate what are safe plants, put some earth and grass down. So my rabbits at the moment, they're rescues, and I'm just they've got a lovely big shed, and when I'm here, I can put them in the grass runs on the grass, but we've got so many foxes and things, I can't do that when they're unsupervised. So I'm having a really safe big run. But in the meantime, I've grown trays of grass, so they've got really good quality earth that they can get their paws into and they can sit and lie on. So one of the other things I specialize in is saying, well, if you can't get your animals out in nature as much as you like, then you need to learn how to bring nature to your animals. So how can they connect in with that animal? Sorry, Diane. Yeah, is we've got to let them guide us and we follow their lead. So let them have quiet time. Don't interrupt them. Don't always let them choose whether they want to come into your space, because sometimes they will want to, and sometimes they will need their own clear energy field so they can connect in a way that they want to, that we're not interfering with.
That's brilliant. So is that why my cat gets into every plant I have and starts pulling the dirt out? And oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you need to really be careful, because if you're buying potted plants, often they have little fertilizer balls in and things like that.
No,
so
I'm not.
Yeah. So I would get some good soil and put a tray there. And then one of the things that we do with the zoopharmacognosia, you learn which herbs are safe for cats, and you can either buy the fresh potted ones and just let them dig and make a mess. And if you've got an area of the house, you can always put a nice sheet down for them and put it on top of there, so you're not ruining your carpet or whatever. But bring some branches in so they can scratch their claws on bark it. So people say, how can I stop my cat scratching? Well, you shouldn't want to. They need their claws. They're essential for their survival. But what you can do is bring a lovely, safe bit of wood in, not some horrible man-made scratching pole, and let them. And some people now are getting really creative with branches that they can climb up and things like this. But try and make it made out of natural substances, not out of plastic. Like there's nothing worse than I see people have got fish tanks and they've got plastic plants in there. It's like torture. Not only the toxic stuff that's leaching into the water, but you imagine you're a fish and you're desperately going to forage for your thing and it's plastic,
right?
So yeah, there's loads of animals that need good homes. So if all you can do is have an indoor home for them, it's my favorite thing is getting creative about how I can enhance my animals' environments. It's my favorite thing, because they are so much more grateful than when you do it for a human. So get creative. Look on the internet. The internet can be bad, or we can use it for good. How can it's very easy to get a list of cat safe plants, dog safe plants. Growing sprouts. I've started sprouting recently, and sprout your own alfalfa, broccoli sprouts, and give those. Grow seed trays and let your cat mess about in it and get its paws in there, and your rabbit.
So all over this, you don't even know the dirt that I'm going to have in my house. She knows.
It's such fun. I tell you, it's such fun. And if you've got children in your lives, children are so creative. You
Your
just,
husband's
the
down?
adult, just need to check that it's safe what they're bringing in. So, for example, woods, you don't want ones that are going to splinter dangerously. So, you know, a nice apple tree branch or something that's a safe wood, so that if they chew on it a bit or something.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's such fun, and the pleasure it gives you, you'll find it will relieve so much of your stress because you'll get the energy from those things as well.
You have no idea what you just did to my mind, right? My brain is going, okay, I've got all these almond branches, I've got and I've got pistachio tree branches, and I've got all
Brilliant.
this stuff. My husband's bar might become a jungle.
Exactly. It's wonderful. You know, people are so creative, and you can just keep adding to it and add it to it and add it to it. And the other thing you can do is, we do this, the people who do this zoopharmacognosy working with herbs, and we will get you can get dried herbs as well if you can't always get the fresh ones, and put those in different little piles. And if you want to exercise your animal, put them in different rooms, so they've got to go and search out and find what they can find. You know, it's really get creative so that you can make their life, because imagine how boring it would be to be shut in one house all the time. It'd be horrendous.
Exactly. Catherine, I want to make sure everybody knows how they can watch your past videos and where they can connect with you on a daily basis. I want to make sure we get this out there at least twice before we end our call with you today. So where can we find you right now?
Oh, thank you. Well, I've got a YouTube channel, which is just Catherine Edwards. As I said, I haven't posted for over a week because I'm currently on another strike. It's my second channel. I lost the first one. I've got an animal playlist on there, and I promise you there's so much information on there. I've got the most amazing guests on there.
I need that.
I've got BitChute and Rumble as well for the ones that can't go elsewhere, but I am encouraging everyone, because YouTube is very unpredictable at the moment. Please do subscribe to those, because it can be gone.
Can you tell us what the Rumble is?
I will
Catherine
send you the
Edwards
links afterwards, if that's okay. I'll send you my link to and put it under there. And then I have two websites. I've got catherineedwards.life, which is where I talk about the LIFE, 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 not LIVE. Again, I'll send you all the links. Now, on that one, you'll see you can book consults, do product size support, links to the videos, etc. And then I've got catherineedwardsacademy.com, which I'll send you the link for, which is my training courses. So if you want to learn how to use herbs and essential oils safely with your cats, dogs, horses, there's a cat nutrition course on there. There's a dog nutrition, and they're really, really user friendly. They're designed that everyone can take this and run with it straight away. They've got print out little recipe examples and ingredients, do's and don'ts. And we're just currently compiling a horse nutrition one as well, because I work a lot with horses because they're so special. And Instagram, I put a lot of animal stuff on the Instagram as well, little tips and things, but health for the humans and the animals, really, because when we make better decisions for ourselves, then the penny drops, and we'll automatically make better decisions for anyone in our care, regardless of what species they are.
I so agree with that. I have friends that have dogs that smell, and they itch, constant ear infections. I mean, these poor babies, and you know, taking them to the vet, you know, is what we've been trained in the United States. I don't know about Canada, Satnam, and where you are in the UK, but it's like, oh, just take them to the vet, you know, and the vet doesn't do anything, just like the doctor doesn't do anything. Here's a pill, here's something, maybe if we're lucky, this thing will work and it'll just make it go away. But we're not curing the problem.
And it's so easy to see that, and it's so distressing for the animal that's got that. I mean, their life is literally so miserable, and it's so easy to put right if you then work with someone that knows what they're doing. And it's not going to cost you any more. It will save money, because you'll save all the vet's fees, and you'll transform your animal's life and your life. But I think you've raised a really good point there, Diane, is I think all of us humans have got to realize now that this is a time for self-responsibility. There are no quick fixes in life. You know, you cannot go and grab something. I'm not saying we have to be perfect all the time. You know, that good old 80-20 rule comes in really handy. but give our bodies, our minds, and our animals' bodies and minds the resilience. So when we want that treat night, we can have it. But equally, you know, no one watching this is stupid. We can try and fool ourselves and say we've been taught this, we've taught that. But by the time you're grown up, seriously, you should have a pretty good idea of looking at a plate of food, whether it's yours or your dog's, to say, is this real food or is it not? Is this balanced? No animal of any species would eat the same meal every day and expect to be healthy. It's impossible. It's impossible. If you've got any food and it's got a list of this much vitamin C, this much vitamin D, this much selenium, that is a synthetic vitamin and mineral. You can't go and pick an apple off the tree and know how much is in it, because every apple will be different. That's what keeps us healthy, the variety. So it's really, I think, a time for putting our big boy pants on, stop making excuses that we didn't know, because actually every adult knows enough to say, this isn't right, I need to go and find out more. You don't need to have the answers, but you need to have the willingness to go and find them.
I agree. And, you know, I know we're going to be getting ready to wrap it up here in a little bit, but I have a burning question. And the question is when you discovered that you had this innate connection, and I point to my head, but I half suspect it's your heart, connection with animals, and that you were able to ebb and flow and communicate with them. You know, was this, you know, a voice in your head? Did you just have an innate feeling? And, you know, how old were you when that happened? And how long did it take for you to go, oh crap, I'm going to have to admit this to somebody someday? And, you know, everybody's going to think I'm insane. I mean, I understand, because I've gone through very similar things myself. And, you know, how did that happen?
I definitely think I was born with it. And I think everyone is, really. But I think just like we're all born with certain things, we're all born with desires to establish. So I was lucky that I've never lived without animals. My parents really loved animals. And so when I was born into a house with animals. And in fact, it's a standing joke that my mother's always preferred animals to us. And I really can see why. I don't blame her for that at all. That's not criticism. I'm just moving out the way because there's such lovely sun coming in. It's in my eyes. So I always had it, but it wasn't until I got to, quite seriously, I think it was, in fact, I was really late into adulthood. So I didn't realize that everyone wasn't picking up this information. I just assumed that everyone still did. So all through my life, I've always been able to know. So I don't hear voices, but I feel physical sensations. And it's like there's no separation between one. It's not like I can choose to have a conversation with them, but when I'm in their energy field or I'm connecting in remotely, I can just feel exactly what they're feeling. The tricky thing is then inserting that into human words that aren't going to offend the human, because they just are very blunt. They don't, because there's no ego, there's no offense, there's no rudeness. They just say it as it is, a bit like a young child would. And then I had a series, just after I'd had my first child, I met this really nice friend and we were at a barbecue together. And we were saying something, we were having a disagreement about someone was roasting a pig right next door to a field of pigs. And I was like, this is literally barbaric. You know, can you imagine if that was a human that we're doing in front of us? It's like, what bit of anyone thinks that's okay? And everyone else thought I was just being silly. And then this one of my friends just turned to me, she said, oh my God, you genuinely believe that, don't you? And I was like, how could everyone? And then that moment, something clicked and I was like, oh my God, you genuinely don't see it or feel it. Because until then, I thought people were just being deliberately ignorant. I didn't realize that they'd shut off that ability. And then, just cutting a very long story short, so I'd had it all along. I just didn't realize everyone else didn't have it. I could see they were making ridiculous suggestions. I then went to study animal biology and animal behavior at university, and I just knew so much of what we were being taught was completely wrong. You know, I was like, and then I unfortunately had one of my cats run over And I was absolutely distraught. It was just the worst thing. And I got an animal communicator around, and I made my husband sit in and listen. And my husband was quite skeptical. He's very close. I mean, loves all animals, but an animal communicator, he was a bit like, don't be silly sort of thing. Yes, I can understand that they feel emotions, but you can't talk to an animal. And anyway, this animal communicator told us stuff that there's no way you could have made up. And my husband's jaw just literally dropped open. But by that stage, I was an adult, sort of probably mid-30s by that stage. And I literally had my confidence drop because so many people were just saying, this is silly, you can't do it, like so many adults get told. So then I went and did some formal training, which was a really intensive course, because I needed to get I knew I could do it, but for my confidence, I wanted some external validation. And the accreditation process for this course was really, really tough. And so I needed that to get my confidence back up, to know that I was. So it almost been there, it had been dropped down by being knocked out, people saying, don't be silly, particularly since all my friends were scientists. And then I just had to say, get some external verification. And then I've been away at flying. And I do genuinely believe everyone can do this if they have a genuine will and they're prepared to sort of step out of, for that period of time, their ego. And it's one of the best things you can do, because, you know, it doesn't matter whether that's another person or not. And look at how many humans have lost the ability to communicate human to human with respect.
Big time. I totally agree with that. This has been so in-depth and valuable, and we could have you on for hours and
hours
and hours and hours, but we'd love to have you back again for another series, if you will. But
yeah, of course,
yeah, we really appreciate.
No, Kid and Candy are such animal lovers as well, so they sort of do all this. No, I love it. I think, you know, people can trivialize it, can't they, ladies, as I was saying, or just, but actually what they don't realize is if we could all get back to genuine connection and communication, all these problems would disappear. All the problems 100%. We're worried about would just go.
100%. And this is why our connection is key. It doesn't matter how far we are, where we are in the world, but when we connect with our hearts, this is where love starts flowing and we start getting our answers, because that unification, that oneness that we're all part of, is so powerful, that brings forward not just the wealth of knowledge that you've just shared with everybody, your experiences, your guidance. There is so much more that people tap into to tune into themselves, say, oh, I'm guided to this, I'm guided to do this. And this whole guidance system that we have within us is our book of life, our intuition that flows to us and through us. And the power that we share, because each one of us has a different book that flows through us, that comes together as the biggest book of life, because it's that unification, that love, that powers us all to have the quality of life, to live in that loving space, in the well-being space. And that's what we really need to move into.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. It's so beautifully said. And, you know, it's my great wish is the fact that we're having these conversations now is so, so wonderful. You know, it does give me real hope, because, you know, the younger generations, they switch so quickly. Yes, they've had a lot of negative influences on them, but their innate abilities are so wonderful that they can adapt so, so quick. And, you know, I just say to people, you know, I get loads wrong all the time, but it's that willingness to keep learning and get the feedback and getting, you know, the best teachers for me are my animals, because they're far more honest than most humans are. They tell you how it is. They don't care what your hair looks like or if you've got a spot or anything. They don't care at all. They're just genuinely, when they're with you, that's the biggest message I would say to people, whether you're with a human or a non-human, which opens up to a whole range of things. Talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about animals again. That could get us in too much trouble. Okay, when we're human or an animal, just be present when you're there. Because when you're really present and watching the interactions and saying, that's interesting, I wonder what my dog's trying to tell me, that's interesting. I wonder what my cat's trying to tell me. You know, wow, what's that bird trying? That bird just keeps trying to give me a message. What is it wants me to know? Seriously, your life will transform.
Love it.
I need more of this.
Oh, it's so lovely talking to you, ladies. Thank you so much. I hope it'd be interesting to see the questions in the comments. You know, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You'll all have your own way. But our animals deserve it. They ask us to keep looking for better solutions. So share them. We'd love to hear your ideas as well.
Absolutely. And I'll be checking the comments as well.
Wonderful.
And we'll put your links into the link tree as well, so that people
Yeah,
can.
I'll send that across now.
Yeah.
I'll send that in an email to you, so you've got that. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you,
Oh,
Catherine,
you
for
are
coming
so
on.
welcome. Thank you so much for coming here. The next time we meet, I'm going to have a list. We're
Please
going to go
do.
down the list. And in the meantime, I'm going to be getting on your site and I'm going to be learning.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
Oh, that's lovely that it's available. Thank you for that.
We love and appreciate you, Catherine. We thank you. We'll see you soon. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you, everyone,
Okay.
for watching.
Namaste.
Thank you. Bye-bye.